What if your smart home just knew what to do? As an Apple HomeKit user of over 10 years, I'm tired of a smart home that was anything but smart. I've had to deal with accidentally blinding myself during movie night and so many guests getting confused by my smart house. Now, Home Assistant is the secret weapon that took my smart house from being frustrated to fully autonomous. I will be sharing how to build these simple automations that make my house run on autopilot, from one-click guest mode to my motion-activated lighting to the daily reset that fixes any broken tech, as well as how to integrate all of these into Apple Home. Unlike the Apple Home app, Home Assistant is a separate device. You can either build it yourself and load it onto a Raspberry Pi, or if you're new to home automation and want something a little bit more plug and play and family friendly, I picked up the Home Assistant Green system, which does have Home Assistant preloaded and installed. And I put a link to where you can find yours in the description below. While you're checking that, please subscribe for more tech reviews and home automation content. I absolutely hate having to yell at my smart speakers to turn my lights on, and I constantly forget to turn them off when I'm leaving a room. I recently picked up the new IKEA motion sensor. This device is Matter enabled, and I have mounted it to the wall in the corner of my living room. So anytime that I walk into my living room, the device will trigger and set off my automations. Let me show you how I have this set up. Anytime motion is detected in my living room, it turns my lights on. This is easy enough, but again, this is my living room, and I don't necessarily want my lights to turn on while me, my friends, or family are watching TV or gaming. I set up a condition to check a few different things before it turns my lights on. First, I have my television plugged into this TP-Link power outlet so I can monitor the power consumption of the television and tell the automation not to run if the wattage of the TV is over 0.5 watts. If we're in the living room watching TV, the last thing that we want is to have the lights turn on in the middle of movie night. The second condition that I have it check is if the living room lights are already off. This way, if the TV is off, but the lights are maybe at 20% and we move, they don't blast up to 100% and blind us. Finally, I have a condition that checks if guest mode is turned off. I'm going to be talking about this a little bit later in the video, but if all conditions pass, the automation will run successfully and turn my lights on in the living room. As I mentioned before, I always forget to turn my living room lights off when I leave, so I created an automation to do that for me. When setting up this automation, I added a duration condition to the beginning of the trigger. So once no motion is detected in the living room, the automation sets a 15-minute countdown before any further actions are checked or run. Not putting this delay into the automation will begin to immediately check for conditions turning off the lights. Once this timer is finished, it will check to see if guest mode is turned off, if the living room lights are already on, and if the TV wattage is below 0.5 watts before dimming the lights over a 10-second period. Having these two automations check the TV's power consumption tells my system if the TV is on or not, and if it is, don't do anything, effectively nullifying the motion sensor entirely. Then finally, adding the 10-second dimmer switch will give myself or my family 10 seconds to wave their hands to trigger the lights to turn back on. Inside Home Assistant's Devices and Services dashboard, you can create a helper. This is a simple on-off switch that will allow you to control automations by the click of a button. Later in the video, I will show you how to add this to your Apple Home app so you can control this from your phone or from Siri. I don't know about you, but I love my dog, but when we need to let her out before bedtime, we need to have the lights in the backyard turn on so we can keep an eye on her. As mentioned before, I tend to forget to turn my lights off, so to help me out, I got the Aqara P2 door and window sensor and attached it to my back door. Using Home Assistant, I created an automation that when I open the back door, the lights turn on as long as it's after 5 p.m. And I have the same automation that turns the lights off as soon as the door is closed. Additionally, if for some reason the door is left open for more than 10 minutes, I have a notification sent to my phone saying that the door has been left open. Speaking of security, I also have the Aqara G410 video doorbell. This device is great because it doubles as a security camera and a doorbell for my home. This way we don't have anybody steal our Amazon packages, and it gives the neighborhood an extra layer of protection. I also have a Philips Hue bulb out front that turns on when motion is detected after sunset. This automation is actually built inside the Apple Home app as I currently do not have this device wired since we are renting. So while I'm talking about Apple Home, let me show you what the front end of my system looks like and how all of my automations integrate within Apple Home. As an Apple user and someone who uses HomePods in their home, the most important aspect for me is ease of use and interoperability between devices. Since I use my Mac as my main computer, having the same interface across devices is the easiest way to switch between controllers. The way you connect Home Assistant to the Apple Home app is to go into Devices and Services and add the HomeKit Bridge integration into Home Assistant. You then can choose which devices to be included in the hub, and it will transfer over to HomeKit automatically. Once you set up HomeBridge, Home Assistant will populate a QR code for you to scan in the notifications panel, and all you have to do is scan it and add it to your Apple Home app. When you first add the home integration into Apple Home, you will need to rearrange your switches and lighting to the correct rooms. This is a good time to mention the way that I name all of my devices in Home Assistant keeps things organized. I use the room the device is in, what type of fixture it is, and the number associated with the position in its room. When looking at my current Home app setup, you can see all of the smart lighting that I have in each room, along with the doorbell camera and my favorite section on top for quick universal controls. Each room has a toggle for every light, and I have an extra switch to quickly toggle all the lights on or off. This simple setup allows myself and my wife to quickly control devices that are needed, while Home Assistant handles the more complex back-end automations. Functions like resetting the adaptive lighting, changing the color temperature and brightness throughout the day, and my motion sensor in my living room that Apple's home automation matrix can't necessarily handle. Using Home Assistant as the back end of my smart home allows me the ultimate control of my devices and my automations, while loading it onto the Apple Home app allows me the ease of use for everyone else in my home. Now that I've shown you some specific automations that I use, let's shift gears and explore the core building blocks and simple hacks that I've learned along the way. I find it incredibly useful to actually have automations trigger at specific times of the day. For example, inside my backyard lights automation, I have a condition that checks if it's after 5 p.m. but before 8 a.m. This stops the lighting from turning on during the day, saving electricity. When building these functions, you also have the option to build in conditions the automations will check before completing the task. These can range from checking the time or if a set of lights happens to be on. This makes sure that your automations take into account certain preferences you may have around your home and ensure that they only trigger when you want them to. Now moving on to how my home actually resets itself throughout the day, keeps automations up and running, and fixes anything that might get broken throughout the course of the day. Throughout the day, you might want to alter your automations or turn off certain aspects of your functions when you have company over or if you're working late on a project and need your home to be a little bit less automated. The problem is that when you go and change something or turn your automated lights off, the next time that you want your system to just work, everything might be messed up, altered, or maybe some automation in the chain failed to run properly. This is where my next automation comes in handy. This is my automated reset trigger for all of my home automations. At 7 a.m. every day, I have every automation I use throughout the day turned back on automatically. The thing that is special about this automation in particular is that every single thing that I'm triggering runs in parallel. This ensures that if one of my automation fails to trigger or a device may be unreachable, the remainder of the functions are still enabled, and it adds an extra layer of protection onto my system. You do not want one bad Wi-Fi connection to ruin your entire system from functioning properly. Adding this into any automation will alleviate many headaches and troubleshooting when resetting or having automations fire off successfully. There are plenty of more complex automations I have in mind, including my entire adaptive lighting setup, but that honestly deserves its own dedicated video. Let me know if you would like me to walk you through how I set up my adaptive lighting in Home Assistant in the comments down below.